He's a monster. And I truly do believe he'll kill again if given the chance. Don't give him that chance.
Saturday, February 20th, 2016. Ryan Lawrence pulls up to the Destiny USA shopping mall in Syracuse, New York at about 4 p.m. to drop his wife Morgan off at work. Per their routine, he would return to pick her up when her shift ended at 10 p.m. after spending the evening with their beautiful 21-month-old daughter, Maddox, who they affectionately refer to as Max. Morgan disappears into the mall as Ryan looks at Maddox, their blonde-haired, brown-eyed little angel who smiles back at him from her car seat. While at work, Morgan receives an odd text message from Ryan indicating that he's left their shared car in the parking lot with the keys inside so that she can drive herself home. A bit concerned, but fully expecting to find Ryan and Maddox at home when she arrives, Morgan opens the door to an empty house. She finds a note from Ryan indicating that he might harm himself or Maddox. Shaken, she then watches an 8-minute video he's also left for her in which he says, quote, "I love you, but I can't do this anymore. I want you to have the life that you deserve. I'm leaving and I'm taking Maddox with me." Overcome with a sense of dread, Morgan dials 911. Ryan Lawrence and Megan Forster met while working part-time at Tivana in the Destiny USA Mall. Growing closer with time and bonding over their shared love of the outdoors, the two eventually began dating. Morgan would soon be pregnant and the young couple would decide to marry. Their families then came together to care for Ryan and Megan's daughter, Maddox Mary Lawrence, who was born in May of 2014. Ryan and Morgan shared a rented house on Valley Drive in Syracuse, a single car, and a dog named Trooper, while they each worked low-wage retail jobs. They didn't have much, but it seemed to be enough for them. They were described by friends as inseparable, and Maddox was known to be a very happy baby. In 2015, prior to Maddox's first birthday, they noticed that something was happening to her left eye. Normally light brown, it was steadily darkening over time. After an examination, Maddox was diagnosed with an uncommon form of eye cancer called retinoblastoma. This is something that happens during fetal development when retinal cells mutate, disrupting cell growth and leading to the uncontrolled formation of malignant tumors that can result in blindness, removal of the eye, or death. With this devastating, life-altering new reality thrust upon them, Ryan and Morgan sought immediate medical care for their daughter. The initial treatment plan, they learned, would be chemotherapy, targeting the tumor and the blood vessels feeding it. The Lawrence family then began making weekly trips to the Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City, a 4-hour drive each way, for intensive treatments that each lasted 6 hours. Unsurprisingly, this was incredibly taxing on them both emotionally and financially. Ryan worked delivering pastries to coffee shops and as a gas station attendant, while Morgan was still working in retail at the mall. Without comprehensive health insurance, they were quickly overwhelmed with medical expenses. Their family and friends created a GoFundMe page for Maddox that raised over $9,000, but this barely enabled them to stem the tide for a short time. Ryan and Morgan did their best to remain united and strong, and thankfully, Maddox responded exceptionally well to her treatment. After only 4 of 8 sessions in her initial round of chemotherapy, doctors reported that her eye health was improving and that she would very likely make a full recovery. Fortunately, this is exactly what happened. Within months, Maddox was declared cancer-free. She would require checkups for years to come in order to ensure that no malignancy had returned, but she had beaten the rare form of cancer that so gravely threatened her fragile young life. After Morgan called 911, she phoned her father and pled with him to come to her house right away. Rushing to be with his daughter, before even knowing what had happened, Michael Forster arrived as quickly as humanly possible. He found police there with Morgan and was quickly dealt a horrific blow when told that his granddaughter Maddox was missing. After police reviewed the note and video Ryan had left for Morgan, with his words hinting at despair and danger, They determined him to be emotionally unstable and promptly issued an Amber Alert across New York State. Morgan and her father then waited, sick with worry as the hours passed, for news as to Maddox's whereabouts. In addition to the Amber Alert, the Onondaga County Sheriff's Department launched a massive search effort for young Maddox that first focused on areas surrounding the Lawrence residence and the Destiny USA shopping mall. Countless local and state police officers scoured these areas, along with a police helicopter that was deployed to search from above. Coming up empty, the search would soon extend to Onondaga Lake and the whole of the towns of Syracuse and Baldwinsville. Morgan made an appearance on the news, pleading with Ryan to bring Maddox home safely.
Ryan, please call. We just want to know that the both of you are safe. The whole family loves you. The whole family wants you both home. And we just want to know that you guys are in a good place. We'd love to see you both as soon as possible.
Stepping away from the microphone, Morgan falls into her mother's arms for consolation, completely beside herself with worry and grief. TV and media outlets quickly begin following the case and providing updates on the search for the missing toddler and her father, while requesting any and all tips from the public. At this time, many in the community held on to the hope that the situation was a misunderstanding or a temporary family dispute that would end with Ryan and Maddox returning home safely. Not much is known about Ryan Lawrence's life prior to meeting Morgan Forrester. He'd grown up in Baldwinsville, New York, and attended C.W. Baker High School. His mother, Mary Lawrence, from whom Maddox would later inherit her middle name, worked as a victim's advocate in the Onondaga County District Attorney's Office. After her brother was murdered in 1990, Mary selflessly chose to help families and individuals who were the victims of violent crimes. Tragically, Ryan would lose her to kidney cancer in July of 2008 when he was just 17 years old. After high school, Ryan bounced from one low-wage job to another. This continued during his relationship with Morgan, their marriage, and the birth of Maddox. He and Morgan, from all known accounts, were very dedicated and loving parents. And though it's difficult to believe that there were no blatant warning signs, no one believed that Ryan would ever be capable of kidnapping his own daughter. On Monday, February 22nd, 2 days after Ryan had disappeared with Maddox, a woman reported having seen him in Baldwinsville wearing a disguise. Police soon locate Ryan and place him under arrest. At the time, he was wearing a wig, a hat, and sunglasses. He smelled strongly of campfire, and he seemed, quote, off, according to the arresting officers. Initially, Ryan is uncooperative, providing a false name and birth date. Eventually, though, he exclaims, quote, "You got me," and admits to his true identity. When police search the backpack he'd been wearing, they find camping gear, spray paint that he'd intended to use to change the color of his skin, and a survival guide called 100 Deadly Skills. Unfortunately, Maddox is not with him. When interrogated, Ryan claims that Maddox is safe with a couple he had given her over to, and added, strangely, that the couple had fled to Bolivia. Police continue to press him as to where he'd been for the past couple of days in hopes of ascertaining Maddox's possible location. No one is buying any of the flimsy explanations he's providing. On the morning of Tuesday, February 23rd, Ryan agrees to take a detective to the location he'd been to after kidnapping Maddox. They visit an abandoned house where he claims to have started a fire for warmth and remained for a night. While there, the detective presses Ryan, saying that they both know the story about Maddox being with a couple in Bolivia is untrue. Intuiting that Ryan's breaking point is not far from reach, the detective then asks him bluntly, quote, "How did she die?" Ryan then breaks and responds, quote, "Blunt force trauma." The detective asks again where Maddox is, to which Ryan replies, quote, "You won't look at me the same way once I tell you what I did with her body." After Ryan dropped Morgan off at work, he drove with Maddox to a secluded area about 25 miles south of the mall called the Labrador Hollow Unique Area in Cortland County. In a deep wooded area there, known as Tinker Falls, amidst the biting temperature and the quiet stillness, Ryan sat with his daughter for a time. Eventually, he stood and began pacing around behind her. As he watched Maddox stand and begin to explore her immediate surroundings, Ryan prayed for a sign, specifically asking God to make her stumble. Continuing to watch her for a few moments, Maddox does not stumble. Ryan then approaches from behind and strikes her head with a wooden baseball bat, ending her precious life. He built a fire and fed it with wood and gasoline until it was large enough to lay his daughter's body onto. He believed that if he cremated her, he would be releasing her energy into the world faster, for whatever that was worth. As he watched her burn, he tossed the murder weapon into the fire as well. After some time, he placed Maddox's partially burned remains into a yellow bag and put it in his car. He then drove back to the inner harbor section of the Onondaga Creek, where he weighed the bag down with a cinder block and released his daughter's remains into the depths of the dark water. Afterwards, Ryan, now a murderer of the worst sort, wandered around for several hours and spent the night under a pedestrian bridge in Syracuse. When Ryan was returned to the sheriff's department for an official confession, he gave several contrived motives for murdering his daughter before hinting that he had done it out of jealousy. As Maddox had been the focus of family attention for her illness and been appropriately celebrated for her courage while beating a rare, life-threatening form of cancer, Ryan apparently felt overshadowed by his daughter, with his needs being overlooked by his family, particularly by his wife. He further confessed that he had intended to make it appear as though Maddox had run away. He then planned to commit suicide somewhere along the Ohio River, hoping that his body would float out to the Caribbean, where his mother's ashes had been spread 8 years earlier. After Ryan's full, insanely disturbing confession was on record, officers began searching the inner harbor for Maddox's remains. Police divers tasked with breaking the ice and entering the water observed ash and drag marks on the frozen shore. They also located a knife and what they believed to be a rib bone embedded in the ice at the water's edge. The child's remains were soon after located, stuffed carelessly into Ryan's yellow bag with a cinder block tied to it. The bleak scene was so distressing to those present that church chaplains were brought in to provide emotional support. Ryan Lawrence was initially charged with second-degree murder, but after mental health evaluations and prosecutorial deliberation, the charge was upgraded to first-degree murder.
That you then placed her body and the baseball bat in a prepared fire pit for hours. Afterwards, the defendant took Maddox Lawrence's charred remains, consisting of her head, torso, and parts of her legs, placed them in a container, and transported them back to Onondaga County, tied the remains to a cement block, and disposed of those remains in Onondaga Creek. Are all of those allegations true?
Yes, sir.
How do you plead under the charge of murder in the first degree?
Guilty, Your Honor.
After being deemed competent to participate in court proceedings, he officially pled guilty pursuant to a plea deal, as a part of which he would waive his right to appeal. Maddox's family agreed to the deal only in order to avoid the psychological burden of a trial. Prosecutors argued that Ryan's actions subsequent to the murder, burning Maddox's body, disposing of her remains, fleeing, and later denying involvement, were proof of premeditation. They also highlighted the fact that Ryan had confessed to feeling jealousy due to the attention Maddox had received during her treatment and recovery. His defense attorney, however, maintained that Ryan had been a devoted father up until the incident, that he was not jealous of Maddox, and that something must have caused him to snap. He was suffering from, quote, an extreme emotional disturbance, which was apparently the most fitting diagnosis his psychological evaluators were able to come up with. I don't know that we'll ever be able to comprehend exactly why he got to this emotional state, his attorney said, but he felt profound remorse for his actions. In Ryan's mind, he'd somehow done what he did out of love. Of course, this was not enough for the court, for Maddox's family, or for the public. On November 16, 2016, Judge Anthony Alloy sentenced Ryan to 25 years to life in prison, noting that while the plea deal included the possibility of parole, the nature of the crime merited the longest sentence permitted under state law. Ryan would be 50 years old before being seen for the first time by the New York State Parole Board. Family members were then permitted to make statements before the court. Maddox's grandmother spoke first. Even speaking her granddaughter's name caused her voice to shake. She described how her family's lives had been shattered and how they'd been cruelly left with memories to serve as their only form of comfort. She then aimed to expose Ryan's superficiality when she stated that he had divorced Morgan after his arrest, and rather than requesting any sentimentally valuable keepsakes of his daughter, instead asked for a fish tank, a photo of his dog, and a bike without wheels. Quote, "These are the things of value and importance to him," she said, glaring at Ryan for a moment, then following up by asking, quote, "Was Maddox ever important to you?" Morgan then addressed the court for the first time. Weeping, she spoke of the debilitating anxiety that now plagued her and the profound sense of emptiness in her life caused by the absence of her daughter. At one point, she turned to Ryan and said, quote, "I would give anything to hug her again. I just think it's so cowardly what you did. What was the point?" She then openly questioned her own judgment. Having once loved and trusted Ryan, she fears never again being able to feel confident that she knows anyone. Morgan claimed that Ryan had deceived everyone in his life. His actions were unexplainable, and she did not believe that he was remorseful. Instead, she called him a monster who would kill again if given the chance. She needed him to spend the rest of his life in prison for what he had done. Ryan then apologized in court. Not expecting forgiveness, he explained that his sorrow was deep and that he could not justify his actions. He loved Maddox and was in anguish over what he'd done. He claimed that she was always his main concern and that he, quote, wanted more for her. He doesn't know how he got to the dark, irrational state he was in when he took her life, but stated that the act was against his nature. Himself unable to make sense of what he did and wishing he could undo all the damage he's caused, Ryan expressed his sorrow while acknowledging that he can, quote, never be sorry enough. The judge asked, while delivering Ryan's sentence, quote, what was the purpose in taking this beautiful child's life? Answering his own rhetorical question, he states there is none. He continued, quote, a wife who loses a husband is called a widow. A husband who loses his wife is called a widower. A child who loses their parent is called an orphan. You know, Mr. Lawrence, there is no term for a parent who loses a child. That's how awful it is. While Ryan Lawrence's court case ended with a prison sentence, the wounds his crimes left on his and Morgan's families, and even on the wider community, remained. Those who knew Ryan struggled to comprehend his ability to commit such heinous acts. Quote, what we saw of Ryan was that he loved Maddox immensely, his family said in a statement after his arraignment. We are struggling to make sense of this tragedy and know that we never will, end quote. Without a trial and the full unfolding of the evidentiary process that would have included witness testimony, definitive mental health diagnoses, and full forensic reports, the motive for the crimes would forever remain uncertain to all but Ryan Lawrence. Ryan's family members, Morgan, and her family members all questioned whether they had missed warning signs in Ryan as he descended to the dark place he had reached by February 20th. His brother Rich indicated that no one ever believed Maddox could possibly have been in danger in his brother's care. Ryan may have been a, quote, slacker and, quote, selfish, but Rich stressed that he'd never been violent. Ultimately forced to accept reality, Rich conceded that what his brother had done was unforgivable, adding that he did not deserve the support of his family. They were positioned firmly on Maddox's side. In the minds of many, Maddox was a miracle child. She had overcome a form of cancer that could very well have taken her young life. Yet a completely unexplained and unexplainable betrayal on the part of her father would deny her the life that she both deserved and had earned through intense struggle. Very sadly, this miracle child would soon become the central figure in a tragic story that ignited shock and sorrow in everyone who heard it. Hundreds gathered in Syracuse at the Inner Harbor where Maddox's remains had been found to mourn the child and pray in her name. A candlelight vigil was held in the Inner Harbor Amphitheater, where stuffed animals, teddy bears, and other trinkets were placed at the water's edge for Maddox. The district attorney said of the public reaction, quote, "This community has truly felt a personal sense of loss by her death." Makeshift memorials would remain present at the location of Maddox's death, and another large-scale memorial was held after Ryan's sentencing. This was done in order to, in a sense, reclaim the popular spot on the Onondaga Creek Walk that had provided people with beauty and calm after it had been so profoundly defiled by Ryan's acts. In October, a park bench was built in Maddox's honor, along with a stone plaque inscribed with the words, quote, "Maddox Lawrence, rest in the arms of the Lord." The story of baby Maddox, deeply disturbing in its details, raised questions of motive, mental health, child welfare, and how a family dealing with illness can unravel. It became etched in local memory, not just as a crime, but as a symbol of the fragility of childhood and the hidden evil that often lurks within the structure of a family. What was an uplifting story in early 2015 became, by the winter of 2016, an unforgettable tragedy. For months, her parents had fought to provide her with access to life-saving treatment, supporting her and loving her all the while, only for her father to take her fate upon himself in the most selfish act a human being can commit. Ryan's acts were shocking in both their cruelty and their betrayal of paternal trust. Ryan stood before the court and said, quote, "In no way can I justify my actions, and there is no one to blame but myself. I'm sorry." But for those who loved Maddox, those words could not possibly undo the fact that the daughter they'd watched battle cancer, laugh in her father's arms, and hold hope for the future was gone. For them, Ryan's prison sentence offered little solace, as what was stolen, Maddox's entire future, was irrevocable. In late 2016, Ryan granted an interview to a news outlet while imprisoned at Elmira Correctional Facility. Now, months after having taken his daughter's life, we would finally hear from the killer and perhaps gain insight into his deranged motive. But, true to form, he would let everyone down once again. He claimed that madness had caused him to do what he did, though his explanation went no further. He then quickly begins talking about himself. Tormented in his cell, he was unable to close his eyes or sleep, he said. He lived in a hell that he had created for himself. After providing this useless information that affected no one, Ryan continued. Apparently, a week before he killed his daughter, his deceased mother spoke to him, telling him to send Maddox to her. She would care for the child and solve all of his family's problems. While at Tinker Falls on February 20th, already in the midst of carrying out his plan, he again heard what he believed to be his mother's voice. She again asked him to let her take Maddox. Ryan apparently protested, insisting that it was his job to take care of her. Then, quote, some other voice accused him of being selfish for keeping Maddox there with him, while they, Ryan, Morgan, and Maddox, were all suffering. Maddox, quote, didn't deserve this. Ultimately, Ryan did not understand what the voice meant by this, nor could he figure out whose voice it was. Through tears and with clear purpose, Ryan then told Maddox that they were going on another trip and that he would see her soon. He told her that he loved her and that she was the best baby in the whole world. He said goodbye, and then he swung the baseball bat. Ryan admitted that he did intend to cover the murder up and evade prosecution. His reasoning for this, however, was not to get away with the crime. He was, of course, unfortunately unable to explain what his reasoning actually was. Apparently, though, it would be to continue living, but without the weight on his family that Maddox's issues caused them. He goes on, continuing to speak about himself, claiming not to be the monster everyone has made him out to be. What he did was horrible and evil, but he claimed it wasn't him doing it. It was, quote, this storm, this madness that was taking over. Asked if he was simply evil, he said he didn't think so because what he was trying to do, which he was incapable of explaining sufficiently, was not evil. He, quote, wasn't trying to hurt anybody. He was trying to save Maddox and his family from hurting and struggling. In his own words, in the most selfish act he's ever done, he thought irrationally it was going to be the most selfless thing he would ever do. In his state of remorse, he claimed that he would do anything now, after the fact, to take away the pain he has caused. This was also not true. Asked if he would refuse to go up for parole, which was within his power to do, he justified his wish to be free by indicating that his family, who were also victims of his actions, wanted to see him free again. Ryan's regret and sorrow clearly had a limit. The only gesture left to him to prove his words, he would ultimately deny those he'd harmed. His love was anything but unconditional. Finally, asked if there was something he wasn't talking about that had caused the tragedy, he said, quote, sort of, and that he, quote, didn't want to talk about it. He was clearly not ready to make true amends or to take true responsibility. He was not even ready to come clean as to who and what he was, what had caused the completely senseless death of his innocent daughter. His selfishness was on full and striking display in this ill-conceived idea to do an interview. Looking at things from the perspective of someone who has gone through something very similar with a family member, Maddox was almost completely out of the woods when Ryan chose to end her life. Moving forward, she would require only intermittent checkups resulting in minor expenses that could easily have been made to preserve her life. Why did he choose this time to do what he did? It truly made no sense and hinted strongly at something else as the driving force behind his evil actions. The leitmotif of Ryan Lawrence's life was his own selfishness, and this explains everything we could ever possibly need to know about him. When his mother divorced his father, Ryan began cutting himself and burning his skin with heated metal. When he lost his mother to kidney cancer 8 years earlier, he branded a heart onto his chest with burning incense. When his dog Trooper fell ill while he was living with Morgan, Ryan took her to a favorite place in the woods, tried to comfort her, and then strangled her to death. It is not known whether Morgan was a party to this, but I'd like to believe that she was not. That it was just another instance of Ryan acting selfishly rather than dealing with reality effectively and doing the right thing. Again, in this case, we are presented with a killer willing to perpetrate an evil act while not willing to harm themselves. Even in a clear state of some degree of mental illness, Ryan was able to take his daughter's innocent life, but did not follow through with his plan to take his own. He valued his own life far too much to end it, so he chose to hide Maddox's remains, disguised himself, and attempted to evade capture for his crimes. His true motive for the murder has never been revealed, yet the state, speaking on behalf of the people in court, indicated that it may simply have been evil. Without any further information or insight, I find it impossible to disagree. There just doesn't seem to be any other way to put it. Ryan Lawrence was clearly never meant to have a child. He was a bad person who, hopelessly selfish and with a ready capacity for evil, was also a coward. He is now where he belongs, and he should be denied the privilege of going up for parole at any point. Years have now passed since that tragic day in February of 2016. We still have no real answers as to why he did what he did, as Ryan is far too selfish to ever admit to the truth. But the story of baby Maddox still echoes as a reminder of the fragility of life and of the trust that should never be broken. In a sad footnote to a sad story, there is a push for something called Maddox's Law. Spearheaded by Senator John D. Francisco while he ran for governor of New York, it proposes to amend the state homicide statute so that the intentional murder of a child under 12 years of age mandates a charge of first-degree murder without the possibility of parole. For some reason, the law has still not been passed. Thank you for listening.
Maddox loved you. She trusted you. And she followed you into those woods.
She was punished because of your weakness. You were never a father. That title is reserved for protectors and selfless men. You are neither.